Good morning, my name is Thomas Hurst and welcome to Kirklees Local TV's Weekly Wind-Up. Each week we bring you up to date on all the latest news in the Kirklees area. We aim to be interesting, amusing, challenging and, as always, provocative. But we're not just satisfied with talking to you, we want you to talk back to us. And if you have any views or comments regarding what's discussed here today, you can contact us by email on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com, and you can find us on Twitter by searching @KirkleesLocalTV. We have kind of a resident special this week on our panel. First of all, Kirklees Local TV resident panellist Carl Warwick.
Yeah, right, Tom.
And also Kirklees Local TV resident panellist and local community figure, Pastor Carlton Napier.
Good to be with you, Tom.
Good to be with you too, and welcome to you both. It's a pleasure to have you both here.
Thank you.
Now, on to our first topic for this week. A number of serious patient safety issues have been logged at both Calderdale and Huddersfield Hospitals. The so-called red incidents are noted when patients could have been harmed or were harmed whilst in hospital. This news comes as the latest development in this ongoing issue, and at a time when only last year £11 million worth of payouts were made for botched care. Kyle, you'd expect hospital to be a very safe place and sterile and secure. Not very good, is it, at the moment?
No, definitely not. I think patients do have an expectation going into hospital that the care that they'll be provided with will at least be safe. But I think there's also been a lot over the past sort of 10 years about superbugs and things like that. Sort of, it doesn't seem to matter how sterile you make an environment, there seems to be a new bug or a new infection that comes along that is able to defeat the sterile environment. So whether that's playing into that or not, or whether this is literally unsafe patient care, I'm not sure. One thing I would like to say is my recent experiences of going into hospital, I've always been taken care of extremely well, and I think the NHS is something that, whilst it's right to criticise, we should also look to be extremely grateful and praise the work that is done in hospitals, because you look around the world really and there's countries all over the world that would bite its hands off to have a system like the NHS, and I think it's something we should be proud of. Obviously we do need to look at how we can make improvements on cases of harm coming to patients whilst they are in care. And I've heard things recently about people being booked into hospital and then forgotten about, being put onto a ward and then nobody coming back to them for 6-7 hours at a time, and it being a family or a relative that has to go and inform somebody we've been waiting for a long time. So I think there's definitely improvements that can be made in the NHS, and we do need to look at how those can be implemented, but at the same time I do feel like we're extremely lucky to have such a system in the country.
Pastor?
Well, I personally want to echo everything that my colleague Kyle has said so far. And one has to understand in the education process of this nation that hospitals, as much as they're a place where we want to get well and be looked after, it's also a place of great bacteria and diseases and all sorts. And we must remember that in the last few years we have had so much in payout, according to us, 11 million in botched care. Now, I would agree that we've got a top-class system, but 11 million spent on botched care would be something worthwhile investing in proper experienced surgeon and hospital care managers that would avoid some of these things. Here we are in Huddersfield and in Calderdale, and we are noticing that the issues have been logged to maybe a maximum. Well, what is happening locally? How comes the patient care groups, PAL, and all the others are sitting by while these things are happening? Tom, I think it's about time that families become more proactive at a local level to ensure that those who are involved in some clinical position hear us and understand that would rather our family members who are ill die at home rather than coming to a place where they're supposed to be looked after. You're expecting the best for them inside there, but at the same time, we're coming to hear that they've picked up a bug. They're dying inside the hospital in terms of what they have done. So I would ask that families join the patient care group, put some more pressure on your local MP and your local health advisory board so that we can get a better outcome maybe next year.
I mean, there were some compelling points made there, and you did mention the 11 million of payouts. Of course, we know that the NHS is a fully nationalised organisation and fully funded by the taxpayer subsequently. So when the payouts occurred, this is £11 million worth of our money. So
certainly, I mean, you look at it and wonder how that 11 million might have been better spent.
Right.
I think there's certainly, I think the accidents and certain incidents are unavoidable. I think it's naive to believe that you're going to hospital and necessarily absolutely walk out perfectly cured. I think that's kind of naive.
That's right.
I think not that shouldn't be the case. I think you should have a certain amount of confidence, but I think at the same time you've got to understand that it's busy places, and there's a lot of different people walking in with different conditions that are all sort of acclimatising in one area. And there's certain levels of things that people within the NHS can do. And I think you're right in saying that people joining patient care groups, people putting pressure in the right way on central government and on the NHS in terms of how it is organised. But I think criticism for criticism's sake doesn't help anybody really. It doesn't fuel improvements. It's almost fuels a negative atmosphere really. I think you've got to balance out the level of your criticism with actual action. I think there's a lot of people willing to stand around and say this is what is wrong with the NHS. But there's very few people willing to put their time into improving the NHS and putting their skills into improving the NHS. I think there's computer systems that are coming out now that make it a lot easier to manage who is in a hospital, what that person's come in for, what care they have been provided with, what care they need to be provided with. And I think that can help, certainly in maybe mismanagement of medicine. I'm not saying that is necessarily a big part of the £11 million worth of payout, but in some cases, before computers and before the possibility of that record being there permanently for somebody to look. Yeah. Manual records are not necessarily as easy to access, so the possibility of there being a mismanagement of medicine, I'd imagine was quite higher. So I think technology is going to help the NHS going forward, and it's about how that technology is implemented and used. Really.
I would agree here with Kyle to really praise and send a sentiment out regarding the National Health Service here in this country. And when you have traveled the world and see what is out there in terms of health provision, it cannot match what we have here in the UK. But I do believe when we talk about botched care, we've got to really put it in proper perspective, because I would be frightened to know that all this professional training that we have done, some of the best medical facilities and medical schools that we have, that we are having botched doctors and botched medical personnel looking after us. I don't believe that is the case. 11 million is not a national figure. It is a figure that is confined to our area, and it's a lot of money. So I do believe we need to reassess things and look at it and let people be informed and tell us the truth, doctor, what is wrong. I think that is why this figure has gone up so high, because maybe if medical personnel were honest in order to tell us why my mom or my dad or my family member died or taken worse, then we would have been able to understand. But now we've got to go and employ solicitors to come in and do it for us, and it's going to cost.
Sure. Well, if you have any comments regarding patient care in your local hospitals, you can send them in by email on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com, and you can find us on Twitter by searching @KirkleesLocalTV. We're going to take a quick break now, and we hope you'll tune in again afterwards. Welcome back. My name is Thomas Hurst and you're watching Kirklees Local TV's Weekly Wind-Up. In our next story for this week, a pair of women described as of Eastern European origin targeted a 72-year-old pensioner and stole 2 envelopes of money from her bag in Huddersfield town centre. This comes among a spate of deceptive tactics used by thieves to steal or con money off the old and vulnerable. Also recently reported was more individuals of the same origin posing as window cleaners, claiming to be owed money for the services of window cleaning companies. The main point here is, of course, the thefts, but before we get onto that, do you think it's necessary to name people in terms of their ethnic origin? Do you think there's a validity in that? Or is it unnecessary and kind of contributing to racial tensions, maybe?
Tom, I think somebody is just trying to be very provocative here. We are already knowing that we are on the back of an election that is trying to ostracize us being in Europe. And already we as the African Caribbean community have had that for years, where we felt very much on the margin. Every time a bag is stolen, it is somebody from the African Caribbean community. And it might be a relief for us now to hear that it is now the Eastern part of Europe that is doing it. But I do believe that somebody is trying to play a game here. We should not be marginalizing people. These elderly people no longer feel secure in their own country. They should have the freedom to walk about the city center, keep their doors open and feel safe. But we know that is not the situation. They have been mugged. They have been beaten in their own homes by their own British colleagues and citizens. Now we're adding insult to injury and bringing in Eastern European, and nothing is wrong if we need to name and shame so that they can all get their act right. But we should not do it in a matter of trying to rig up the political agenda to send them back and to say that we should not open our doors to Europe. But I do believe that we should name people if they are causing a problem, and they've never had a problem to say it about the Irish. They've never had a problem to say about the African Caribbean people. We should not be afraid to name and shame people if it is going to be beneficial for the overall justification and a change in people's mentality and attitude.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to quickly emphasise on that point, I've had dealings with the police in terms of being a witness, and my dealings involved the police saying to me, you know, if it's a fat white man with a lazy eye, you've got to describe him as such, and you've got to be honest with your description, and you've got to say it how it is without fear of being culturally sensitive or causing offence. Kyle, what do you make of this situation and the way it may be described in particular?
I think in terms of when you are witness to a crime, being absolutely honest about the description of somebody that has taken part in a crime is absolutely fair. I think labelling entire groups of people with one simple label and then just slapping that on people who have committed crimes creates more problems than it does solve. I think that's been seen in the 70s and the 80s with African Caribbean descent people coming to this country and wholesale just the sort of bourgeoisie white community just deciding every time a crime happened, every time a mugging happened, it's a black person. And now Eastern Europeans are the 21st century's British person's scapegoat. Exactly. It's literally somebody that we can look at and go, those people are the causes of our problems. And it is an excuse not to look at the real problems in this country, which are lack of jobs, basic lack of jobs, lack of opportunity, and the wholesale hoarding of wealth in the top 1% of the population.
Well, I just want to add to this and make it very clear. we know what we were buying into when we're bringing poorer set of people from Eastern Europe. We know it. It's not that we didn't know. They're coming here because they think that there's wealth here and there's a better life here. And anywhere at all you go in the world, Brazil, Kingston, Jamaica, if you go to Paris, everybody seems to want to come into areas where they can be seen, heard, and felt, and live. So we should not be alarmed if it's the Eastern European people who are mugging. Maybe we need to look at what Kyle says, are there adequate provision for them to be able to live a sustainable life here? And also we must remember, and I will say this without any reservation, we've got a very good police system in this country. Let the law take its course. If they have gone and have trying to investigate this, whatever description you have to do, how are we going to catch the thieves? How are we going to catch the perpetrators? You've got to describe them. So whether they're Eastern, Western, whether they're black, Jewish, or white, name it. Give the police the evidence so we can bring these people to the system and not having the newspaper and the politician using this as a mirror to get into Parliament.
Personally, I'd agree with you in some respects, but disagree with you in others. I think using Eastern European as a label is extremely vague, and you can tar an entire group of people with a brush that should only be laid on a small fraction of those people. Not all Eastern European people coming to this country are coming to this country to pickpocket, to rob old ladies, to pose as corruptly as anything, not all the majority aren't doing that. I have Lithuanian friends who are here at university, and when they finished university will probably stay in the country and get jobs within the country, and they're not robbing people. They've never robbed anybody, yet by this description, they would be tarred with that brush. They're from Eastern Europe.
Which is a good point, but we have to remember that we are not the victims here. The person who is glorifying and is celebrating and is getting our money are the people who run the media. It's a newspaper. It is our current media that is ballooning all of these things. It's not any of us, we're not judgmental, but we must understand that the media need to be brought to some responsible action. They are setting us apart in Europe, they're setting us apart people to people, and we need to have these editors sit down and take responsibility for their actions.
Surely, we could make the point these people are our new neighbours and our new citizens as of the expansion of the European Union in 2004 and 2006. But of course it may not be the case of anymore that it's simply white middle class people being targeted. I mean, Kirklees at a local level is a community of settled and diverse communities. So could this be potentially unsettling if you're an African Caribbean old lady as much as if you're a white old lady? I mean, that's the... Absolutely.
I think it's sort of... Nobody is any less at threat than anybody else. I mean, I'll come back to a point that Pastor Napier made there about the nature of modern media. And unfortunately, the times we live in, newspapers are dying. And because newspapers are dying, they have to be as incendiary as they possibly can be, just to get people to buy them. If they don't have a lass on, if they don't have a lady on page 3 with bits of her body showing, then they're being incendiary.
Yeah. That's right.
And for the majority of newspapers, that's the case. Yeah. And I think what you said as well about the community getting bigger, we are moving irreversibly towards a global community. Yeah. The internet is guaranteeing that the community in the next 20, 30 years will be more global than it has ever been in history. And for us to want to back out of that and run away from it scared and hide on the basis of modern newspaper headlines is just naive and ridiculous to me.
Certainly agree.
Okay. Well, interesting discussion on that subject. We're going to take another break right now. If you have any comments regarding what's just been discussed, you can contact us by email on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com, and you can find us on Twitter by searching @KirkleesLocalTV. See you after the break. Welcome back. My name is Thomas Hurst and you're watching Kirklees Local TV's Weekly Wind-Up. Now our next issue for this week, MPs Jason McCartney and Simon Revell both played their part in backing a failed bid to ensure clearer labelling of halal and kosher meat products. The pair were among 17 members of Parliament who voted for the change. Well, Pastor, you're a Christian, and obviously we're in New Covenant times now, so we don't have to worry about labelling meat slaughtered in line with Levitical law and things like that. Should we have to worry about meat being labelled that's being slaughtered in accordance with perhaps Muslim or Jewish traditions?
I do believe our food should be labelled properly. The food industry here in the UK have very high standards, and I think they need to get on with their job. Yeah, we're talking about food safety and food standards, and I don't see why anybody should have any problem with that. And well done to Jason and Simon for the excellent work. It doesn't mean that because you are the minority, you can't speak out. And I applaud them for speaking out, because I do not want to be eating elephant and horse and food that we are not used to. And there is nothing wrong with having proper labeling on the food, how it was slaughtered, where is it coming from, the process that it has been through, so that we can make an informed choice when we eat it. I have no problem eating any form of meat, but I just need to know what I am eating and how it was done. As you said, I'm a Christian. I would not want to be eating meat that is offered up to some other god as sacrifice and then put on my plate. So I would need to know so that I can read it and make an informed judgment. Somebody else might want that delicacy. It's all about information that we need, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with finding a piece of paper, get it properly downloaded, and stick it onto the product and say, this is how it was done, here's how it was slaughtered, this is what is arriving in your freezer or in the supermarket. Absolutely. Well done, Jason and Simon. And I know that more people are going to be joining you to house those Londoners and those at the south of the border who think that only their views can be heard.
Well, the government, in making a lot of cuts, has cut back on a significant number, arguably, of food safety officers or food standards officers. Do you think that sacking of those officers had a direct impact on the quality of food in supermarkets?
I think that's quite hard for me to comment on. I think certainly there needs to be proper, thorough regulation of food, and that has been seen with the horse meat scandal. I mean, that really was a case of lack of regulation and checking, really. I mean, it's something that you'd have thought shouldn't be able to happen. However, I would echo Pastor Napier again. If it's labelled properly, I don't mind really. I mean, if people want to eat horse meat, that's up to them. I'd probably try it. I mean, I've tried crocodile burger, and you can try the food festival that will be coming up this summer. You can try all sorts of different kinds of meat. It's about having the information.
And we know what it is that we're trying.
Exactly. I mean, you talk about the future of food and the future of nutrition being insects, which a lot of people sort of, turns queasy at, but that is going to be the main source of protein going into the future. If we echo that and watch what is happening in the media, television, with the number of program now that is here, because we are a food-loving country, so most of our TV program is all about food. Now we're looking also at standards, and if you watch what is happening now, people are becoming literally scared now as to what they eat. Everybody's reading the label now because we don't know what we are eating. So the education is good. So nobody should prevent us from having this right to be able to read what we are eating. I think we are a modern country and we are setting standards. And I think labeling your food, if you haven't got anything to hide, well, nothing is wrong in putting the label on.
Well, it certainly seems that the British people are very isolated in riding horses. It seems that everybody else eats theirs, but unfortunately, that's all we have time for this week. As always, please remember to send us your comments, hints and tips. We would love to hear what you think. In order to do so, you can contact us on email on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com, and you can find us on Twitter by searching Kirklees Local TV. A big thank you to both of my guests today, Kyle
Pleasure.
and Pastor Napier. I'm Thomas Hurst. You've been watching Kirklees Local TV's Weekly Wind-Up. We look forward to you tuning in again next week. Goodbye and thank you for watching.